So we've just completed a Liveaboard cruise. I'm going to be giving you some tips as to what to consider when booking. There's going to be 5 categories for this. So firstly, what to consider when choosing. Secondly, what to think about with the room. Thirdly, what to do when packing. Fourthly, what the diving might be like. And finally, equipment you might need. So to choosing, there's a few things you need to consider. Firstly, I would say that you should look at getting all your qualifications before you consider a liveaboard to make sure that you like diving, but also that you have enough experience to do the diving that you want to do and you can do the depth that you need. So I'd recommend having a nitrox qualification as well as at least advanced open water to be able to get down to some of the lower diving. Then looked at the location, so where in the world you want to go. Egypt for this one, but you could also be looking at different locations. So potentially you want to go Indonesia, Maldives, you can go all the way up to Scafell Fell in the north of Scotland. It's up to you and what kind of diving you want to be doing. Then need to think about safety and reviews. So definitely research the companies that are in the area, which one you like the most, and consider things like safety. So for example, do they have a night watch? What's their safety history like? You'll probably also want to look at what the dive guide to people ratio is, how big the boat is. Some people prefer bigger boats, some people prefer smaller boats, and what the cost is, and consider some of those extras that some people include or don't include. So for example, is nitrox included free, or is that something you're going to want to get on top? Most people like to dive with nitrox on a liveaboard as it helps with various things, including surface intervals, and something may look cheaper, but after you add on nitrox, it's not. So just consider that. And remember to look at not only the price of the liveaboard, but the price of getting there. Some places are cheaper to fly to than others, which may impact your decision. So secondly, when choosing a room, generally, you have rooms that are on the upper level or the lower level. There's pros and cons to both. We chose an upper level room because they came with a nicer view, and generally they're often a little bit safer. But you may find there's a little bit more rocking on that upper level. On the lower level, you probably find it might be a bit sturdier, especially as it's kind of lower down in the boat. But what you may find is that there's a lot of engine noise coming from you're right down by the engine. So then when thinking about packing, the general rule I'd say is don't pack a lot. You don't really need much when you're here. I think a few bikinis, most other stuff is generally provided, but again, see what your liveaboard will provide for you. And I would definitely recommend bringing your camera for videos to help create some memories. And we've taken videos of all of our dives here, which we'll upload, but hopefully you get an idea as to what the diving is like, and you can then watch back your dives and maybe see things you didn't see the first time, or you can look back and see what was that fish and get the identification right. Would also recommend making sure during the packing process that you have the right dive insurance that you need. You're packing reef safe sun cream. Generally liveaboards are in sunny places, so you need to make sure that you're not harming the environment in which you're diving in, and that you've got the right equipment. And you may want to ask in advance what the liveaboard provides. So for example, a lot of them may not provide hoods, but you may want to dive with the hoods, so you need to get that before you come, and any spares that you might need. So don't just bring 2 torches if there's 2 of you, bring a third one. You need to make sure you've got a spare torch as a buddy pair. So little things like that I'd consider when packing. Then from a diving point of view, do what you can and what you feel comfortable with. Don't be afraid to say to a guide, actually, I don't want to dive this one, or if it's right, you don't penetrate, just maybe stay on the outside where you're comfortable. If there's a lot of current, maybe say this isn't the dive for me. It's just dive within your limits. I personally recommend waking up early. I really enjoyed all the really early morning dives. I mean, I enjoyed every dive, but the early morning ones really are lovely. And just seeing what you want to do. I think we've ended up diving all the dives, but that's, the choice that we made. And some of the night dives are really cool and generally don't go that far from the boat, so in still conditions you can find some really, really interesting wildlife. And rest when you can. It can be quite taxing to do a liveaboard like this. You're doing a lot of diving, so if you need to sleep during the day, you're on holiday. Finally, we touched on packing, so I'm just going to go into a bit more detail on some of the equipment that I thought was really good to bring and really helped me enjoy my liveaboard experience. And this is from someone who generally rented most of the equipment. So if you have your own dive equipment, obviously pack what you want to, but from a first liveaboard, this is what I brought and what I ended up using. So I'm going to split this into scuba equipment, clothing equipment, and then miscellaneous equipment. So from a scuba point of view, I brought a hood and snood to make sure that my hair was under control and I stayed warm under the water. I also brought a rash vest just for use underneath the wetsuit, and that helped keep me a bit warm as well as preventing any rubbing that might occur when diving quite a lot in salty water. And my own snorkel mask. Prefer to use my own, and if you have prescription, then you can wear one that has the right prescriptions so you can see properly underwater. From a clothing point of view, you don't really need to bring shoes from around the boat. It's just shoes to get on and off the boat when you're on shore, and layers to keep yourself warm. We did have some different weather where we were here, so even though now I'm in quite like a breezy top, what we had during the week, it was really useful for me to have a jumper and then a waterproof jacket so I could lay it up or lay it down as the temperature needed, and that was much better than bringing only one thick thing and one thin thing. You can't really control your temperature in between. I mean, if it was warm, it was breezy, I could stay warm in the wind but without having too many layers on given the sun. So definitely recommend lots of layers from a clothing point of view. Then finally, miscellaneous things that you probably want to bring. Any travel documentation, so hotel bookings, flights, that you know what the information for that is. I would print out your insurance details, make sure you've got your qualification cards, whether it be physical or on a phone. Would consider bringing seasickness tablets. I brought some, didn't take them for the first crossing, and I did not feel very good, so definitely consider bringing that. And also potentially an anti-acid, because some seasickness tablets will cause reflux, so you can kind of combine those two medications together. You may also want to bring earplugs. I personally didn't bring them, I didn't feel like I need them, but then we were in the top level, so if you're in the bottom level you may want to bring them to help make sure the noise is under control during the night. And then finally, your dive log and cash for tipping at the end, or anything you may want to purchase on board. So hopefully all those tips were useful, and if you want to see what our diving experience was like, the video will be linked here.